G'day, I'm Phil Irons. I'm here today to show you how I use the woodcut ProForme Hollowing tools, which I've been using for nearly 30 years now. I'm known for my hollow forms, which have kind of morphed into cremation urns or funeral urns, of which I do an awful lot. I've got, in another building, I've got probably 150 roughed out pieces, so I do quite a lot of hollowing. And the woodcut ProForme Hollowing tools are my favourite tools. I've tried pretty much every single hollowing tool that's out there, and always come back to the woodcut ProForme tools. So let me run through the cutter heads and the handles, and show you how they work and how I use them. So these are the tools. We've got the straight head, the slightly bent head, and the cranked head, and also here we've got the ProForme Flexi, which I'll come to in a sec. I'll just put that to one side. 90% of the hollowing I do is with the straight ProForme head, and then I will use the cranked head to just get under the necks of my pieces. The slightly bent head I use occasionally, but as I say, the majority of the time I'm just using the straight head. So they're made from 5/8 or 16mm high tensile steel shafts, and the ProForme Flexi is 1/2 inch or 12.6mm shaft. This is designed for doing smaller work. So the cutter heads, find the right Allen key, are they've got little flats, a flat on the side here and a flat on the bottom for the Allen screw to locate on. The straight head, the Allen screw comes in from the side, but the bent head it comes in underneath, which is why there's two flats there. The heads are replaceable. With the tools you get this little spanner, just a little laser cut spanner, but I tend to use a 7mm open end ring spanner. I just find it a lot more convenient and easier. So they comprise of the cutter itself, and these are the ones that I use all the time, so they get a bit of stick. So you got the cutter, and you can see those two lines where I've been sharpening it. The little adjustment screw here, the cover plate, or the chip limiter, for want of a better term. If we can go back on there. Now I tend to think of these as like a spoke shave for turning. And so you can govern the thickness of shaving that it will take, so that minimises catches and dig-ins. So I just want to show you the adjustment, but you can see that cover is moving as I move that little screw, and I just push it backwards and forwards. So I normally have it set, or I would recommend that you have it set with about half a millimeter gap here. But the beauty of these tools these heads are that you can set a uniform gap from this corner here right round to the side. Whereas if you're using a circular cutter with a cover on, you'll always end up with a crescent shaped cut. Whereas this, you can set the same thickness of shave, same thickness of cut, all the way around the whole thing. So there you go. So you can see there I've got pretty much the same cut all the way around. So that's just a case of tightening that. When it's in the shaft, it's a lot easier to tighten that up. The other great thing about these is they have a huge exhaust. So the shaving comes through that gap and then comes out here. So they exhaust the shavings, or the shavings exit very easily. Whereas this other types of tool, the shaving has to do a U-turn. But this, you've got a really great exhaust there to get rid of the shavings. So that's back on the shaft now, and as you can see, I've got about a 0.5 millimeter gap all the way around that the brass plate. The cutter heads are identical, whether it's the straight, the slightly bent, or the bent head. The ProForme Flexi is slightly different. It's slightly shorter cutter and doesn't plug in the end of the shaft. It has this articulating head here, which when I'm using this, I don't have it in straight like this. I crank this over, so that one that way, that one round there, and I have this set so that the cutting edge is in line with the shaft of the tool, or it's just down the side, but I can just adjust that so that it's in line with the center of the shaft. There we go. So now let's get rid of those out of the way. Now that's in line. You can see that that is straight in line down there, so it doesn't roll over. You don't want the tool, you don't want that round there, because it's just going to get so much torque on that, twisting that over, it's going to be virtually impossible to use. So just bring that back there and give those a good tweak. So that's the ProForme Flexi. The bit of blue tape on here is a guide as to how deep I am in the piece. When I'm hollowing, I put this bit of tape here so I know where when I've got to the depth I want in the hollow form. So the ProForme comes with the basic kit you get is the ProForme shaft and the ProMaster handle, which the tool just slides into. So the ProForme, any of the ProForme tools come with the ProMaster handle, or the basic kit you get is I think it's called the Pro Kit 1, which is the handle and the straight head. They're held in with grub screws, and these have got little brass pellets on the bottom of them, so that they don't damage the shaft. I think they're 4 mil grub screws. Get that fella back in there, and so just it slides in. It'll go all the way into the head, or you can have it out here, and there's a couple of flats. There's a little flat area down here where you just do those grub screws up against that. I tend to use it with the head protruding about that far from out of the handle. You can see on the bottom here where I'm using it down here. The reason for doing that is that it makes the tool very, very rigid. But I do have to put an extension on the end of this handle, and what I've done is I've got an adapter made up to go into an arm brace handle, so that it's really comfortable for me. This is actually a John Jordan arm brace handle with an adapter on there, so it gives me an awful lot of control with that. The ProForme Flexi comes unhandled, but they do the twin collet handle, which this is the 12.5 mil or 1/2 inch. They do a 10 mil collet, so you can use it as a bowl gouge handle as well. Now this, I have it set, depending on the depth of the piece I'm using, but I've got that set, well, you can set it wherever you like. But what I do with that to give myself a lot more control is I've got an extension handle here that just plugs in the end, and that means I can have the tool have a lot more control of the tool, because I've got this beside my body, but I'll come to that a bit later on when I start doing the hollowing. So that's how they come. As I say, they're my favourite hollowing tools, and I've been using them for quite a few years. So a lot of the work I do are these pieces like this, which will become an urn, and this is 240mm deep, or sort of 9.5 inches deep by, let's stick with the Imperial for a second, 7.25 diameter, or 180mm, and then they are, yeah, it's 220 deep, or 8.5 inches deep in there. This has been roughed out to a wall thickness of about between 10 and 12mm. Walnut is pretty stable, so it doesn't go out of shape very much. So the majority of the work I've done is with the straight head. So I've gone in about that sort of angle and gone all the way down around the base there like that. I'll show you the actual technique I use. And then I use the cranked head to just get in here and do under the neck there. But it only does sort of from there around to the opening with the cranked head. So probably 90% of the time I'm using the straight head, and then the last 10% is just to get in there to clean up under the shoulder there. So one of the most important things with the woodcut ProForme is keeping them sharp, as it is with any tool. What I do is find somewhere to lodge the bottom of the tool, so it's nice and rigid and not flopping around. And then I prefer to use a knife sharpener, actually. It's about 3/4 inch wide or 19mm wide, with a nice handle on it, that I put in the palm of my hand. And then I've got a lot of control with this tucked into my body, the shaft tucked into my body, and using the fine side of this, I just gently go up and down the face diagonally. And because it's a long tool, I find it a lot easier to keep the file flat. I find it a lot easier to do that with this than I do with the credit card, this sort of standard credit card. It's too easy to roll that, whereas the longer one, it's a lot easier because it's just part of you. So that's how I keep mine sharp. If this is the first time you're using the woodcut ProForme, I suggest creating a very simple shape with a fairly wide opening, rather than trying to go through a small opening and get inside. So what I'm going to show you is that simple shape. This is a piece of walnut. The tree's been down about, I don't know, 6-7 years. It's 6.5 inch diameter by about 8 inches long. And so I'm going to create this simple shape from this chunk. So I've formed the bottom third of the form and created my chuck spigot very accurately. I'm a real stickler for getting a very accurate chuck spigot so that it mirrors the shape of the jaws where they prescribe a perfect circle. So I've made a very accurate spigot on there, so the jaws almost close that spins freely, and then quarter turn or less on the key. And that runs nice and true with a really accurate spigot. Create a little divot in the end here for the tail center to, well, it serves two purposes. One for the tail center to come up into, and I only ever use a cup center and never use a cone center. That just goes up in there. The other reason for that is that it's, when I come to drill the depth hole, it gives me something to locate the drill with. So I said, just create a simple shape. Can still be really elegant. So I'll just refine the form with the iron shear scraper. Set that up at about 45 degrees, and I can pull that round and get a really good finish and form straight from the tool. There's a bump there. Alter the head the other direction. A bit more. Feels good. Got a really simple form that's going to be easy to hollow. As well as having a simple shape, another thing that makes life a lot easier is to know where you are in the piece, and to have a depth hole. There's various different ways of getting there, either with some people use a Forstner bit in a Jacob's chuck, so you can use a spindle gouge for shorter pieces. I tend to use, I've got an auger with a bit of tape here to show me the depth I'm going to get to, and with the piece spinning, not at a crazy speed, but the piece spinning, I can drill my depth hole. Very easily, so that I know that that's my depth in there. It just makes life so much easier. So it doesn't matter whether you're using the ProForme or the ProForme Flexi, you want the cutter to be cutting on center line. So you can see I've drawn one there, and I've got that, so the cutter, so the cutting edge is dead on center line, not the top of the brass plate. It makes a big difference. If it's too high, the wood is going to come in and rub the brass plate, and the same if it's too low, it's going to rub the bottom of the cutter. So you want it cutting on centre line. It's especially crucial when you're starting off right in the centre here, because you're on a very small radius. So let's get started. So speed is around sort of, what's that, 700 RPM. And I've got the tool tucked into my side, and I just do little arcing cuts. Don't try and do the whole face the first time. So you're just doing these little arcing cuts and working your way down the centre. Don't try and push it, don't try and rush it. Let the tool do the work. And you can say that's taking some really big shavings out. When I get to the centre, I want to really slow it down. So all I'm doing is just little swaying motions with the tool by my side. And this walnut is cutting really nicely with a nice sharp tool. Now I'm working my way down the centre more here. But still, and then finding that drill hole. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to put any pressure in that direction. You don't want to be pushing the tool at the wood. All that does is just bend the end grain fibres over. So finding that centre again. Right, I'm actually going to shut this, there's got a bit too big a gap on here, and I just want to close it down just to make life, so it's not taking quite such a big cut. So I've closed that down, and now it'll give you a better idea . Now I've shut that down a little bit too much on the side there. I've only got well, a very, very fine cut. I couldn't tell you exactly how much it is, but I just want to push that brass plate sideways a bit. There is a certain amount of movement you can get without having to take the little Allen key to the tool. And I don't roll the tool into the cut. Some people say you should roll the tool in. I just keep it the same level, and I keep the tool on the wood. So it's cutting all the time. You can hear it rather than see it. Let's get rid of a few shavings. So make that little cut there, come back. The reason for that is that when you've got your shavings all blocking your view, you can feel the shape inside. A lot of the time, once you get experience with this, you'll be working by feel rather than sight, because you can't see in there. So by doing this little arcing method, these short movements, it's very easy to control the tool, and you're staying in contact with the surface and developing a feel for where the tool's cutting. So I'm starting to create the same shape on the inside as I've got on the outside. It's a bit bumpy in there at the moment, but I'm nowhere near the finish wall thickness. Having a swivel head lathe makes life a lot easier. When that starts to get that vibration, just ease off and let this, I'm hurrying the tool too much. Let the tool do the work, or open the cut up. But here, that vibration, just back off and let the tool do the work. Because you're only taking a thin shaving. So what I do is get somewhere near the wall thickness I want. By doing these just tiny little arcs, it's a lot easier to visualize where you are, and it's a lot easier to control the tool. If you're making great big sweeping arcs, it's very difficult to control the tool, and you don't really develop a picture of where you are. Where that was starting to bounce, so there you can hear that. Let's get rid of those shavings. So where you can hear that bouncing, if I push hard, it's just going to carry on. So just ease off, let the tool do the work. And sometimes when it's cutting really well, it hardly makes any noise at all. So just finding that center again. The other reason for keeping the tool in contact with the surface is the tool doesn't clog up because you're keeping a shaving running through it the whole time. Move that a bit closer. So now I'm getting somewhere near the wall thickness I want. Again, for your first piece, don't try and go silly thin. Go for something like about, what I'll be aiming for, 7, 8 mil, something like that. Just so that you're not worried about going through the side. It also depends how wet the wood is and what it is. The other thing is, don't try and stand or crouch and look down the tool. All you're going to end up with is a bad neck. Stand up, keep you as upright as you can, and just work the tool down the piece. And now I'm doing really light, delicate cuts. But there you can see I've got a pretty good finish straight off the tool. And what I want to do is start measuring the wall thickness. So my favourite are these Veritas wall thickness gauges, and I set it so it's actually thicker than the gap is bigger than the wall thickness. Close that down a little bit. Let's just go to a different camera. So you can see the gap there that I've set. And as I just go down the side, you can see that going in, which means it's thicker. So I've got a pretty uniform thickness just here, and it's getting thicker down there. At this stage, I put a little chamfer on this top edge here. Put a little chamfer on there with my bowl gouge, just with the flute facing the piece. Just do little arcing cuts. Just sliding across that face. Really safe way of doing this, because you're not putting any pressure on the wood or that opening. So you see the tool is really closed up there. Let's just go to the overhead camera. There we go. So that's really closed up. Just putting that little chamfer on that top edge. So now I can carry on down there and progress down the piece. My centre hole didn't go in perfectly straight from my depth hole. So if I just let the tool eat that away, down the centre there. So this is the irons tool gate. It's got a whatever diameter post that suits your lathe and a height collar. So once you've got it set for whatever tool you're using, you can just drop it in and out at will. The yoke has got two profiles, one for the smaller half-inch tools, and then the other for the larger, the handle. So that it'll support that, and there's five positions along here. So as we get deeper in there, I can put this move these further down, and there's also another position here that I can get just in the center there. So it's really versatile, and you can have it so it's actually, you can have it moving if you want to. I quite sometimes do. It just means I can articulate the tool around a bit in there, just get it in just the right position. So it's not for pivoting against, it is just a support. If you use it as a fulcrum, you're going to create those ribs inside. So when you hear that vibration, just slow the tool down, slow your traverse down. Because 9 times out of 10 it means you're moving the tool too quickly. Stop when I have a clear out. Good idea to have a measure up as well. Head. So no, it doesn't really help, does it? Trying to get so you guys can see. There you go. So you can see the gap getting smaller as the wall thickness gets thicker down there. So I'm doing an arcing pulling cut. You can see the tool, see the action I'm using. And that's just what the technique I use for getting to the wall thickness. So still a little bit thick getting thicker down the bottom there. So I can move the tool rest closer. So at this stage I need to take more out of the base. So I'm down to about a third of the way down the piece, or about a third of the way down the piece, with the wall thickness pretty uniform down there now. Now if you're looking to really refine the inside surface, you can swap the cutter out of the bent head, if you've got the bent head, for the little scraper head that just drops in place of the cutter. Now I have it set so it's got about a 30-degree angle on the end, so it's going to create a shearing cut. So because of the grain orientation here, I'm just going to go down that wall. And I can really refine that wall inside, feeling lumps and bumps, very light pressure. Just a few soft strokes down there, get a really nice clean finish in there. Something that's really easy to sand if you want to sand the inside. A little bit of a bump just there, so I can get rid of that. So I'm pushing the tool down the wall, or advancing it down the wall, because of the grain orientation. So I'm cutting downhill. That's it, that's got that. That's really cool. That's a really nice finish in there. Won't take much sanding at all. So now I'm just trying to establish where it is. So I know when I've got rid of that bumping in the center there, that I'm at the depth I want. Another little trick you can do is put a bit of tape on the shaft, so it's just by the T, a little bit of masking tape. So when that lines up with the opening, I know I'm at the depth I want. So I'm going to start there. So you can see I'm doing that arcing pulling cut. I'm not just cutting to this, not just cutting across to the side. I'm actually easing the tool out at the same time. Means I can, what I call, sneak up on the wall thickness. And have a measure up for wall thickness. Yeah, so it's pretty good down to, so about halfway down, I've got a really even wall thickness now, and it's just getting thicker down there. Where you've got to be careful is when you get down to here. You've got to be careful. This is where you're going to bust a piece like this. You'll come through the side here, which is where doing this arcing cut that I've been describing will help you not go through the side. Takes, like any tool, takes a bit of practice to get used to, but they are brilliant tools. Have another check on the wall thickness. So yeah, down there, just here, it's a bit thicker, but I can feel that on the inside as well. Now I'm working across to that well, so have a look at the wall thickness. Yeah, it's getting thicker just here, just there. Turn these over and it'll give me a more accurate reading. So I've still got quite a bit of thickness down there. I can just feel where that bit is in the bottom, the bottom of the well that I created. I can feel where that is with those. So I just got to join the two up now. So I can feel that bump. Too many shavings in there. Have a measure up. Can you guys see there? Yeah. So down there, turn that over. And I've got a very, very uniform wall thickness all the way down that. A few little bumps, but nothing to really cause concern. And I can get in there with that, with the shear scraper or the little scraper head on there and clean them up. So now what I'll do is, to do the bottom, rather than trying to pull it towards me, I tend to have it flat and turn the, so I'm working on this, that bit there, tighten that up. That's it. And then I can just roll the tool over a little bit to get a shearing angle. But again, this is done by feel, and I'm not pivoting on the, I'm not using this as a this is a fulcrum. I'm just feeling. So I can feel that high spot there. Just brushing it up that wall. A little bit of a high spot. So that's that done. So there's your finished form. Really simple shape. Nicely finished inside. Sand that, put a coat of black paint on, whatever. And then I will reverse turn it and to take the foot off. So as I said earlier, doing a very simple shape makes doing the inside a lot easier, especially when you're first starting out. And as you get more experienced, you can then go on to doing more complex shapes, through a smaller aperture. So I used the straight one to get to about here, just went in at that angle and did the rest of the inside with it with the same technique I showed you, and then used the cranked head to get in under this shoulder here, but only use it from about there round to the end, so it doesn't get used much at all. This is just a rough out. It'll be left to dry, and then I'll refinish it, put it back. So I've sanded and oiled that piece and painted the inside blue, and it's come up a real treat. The little bit of ripple there, lovely, and the knot. So all that remains now is to take the foot off, and for that I've got my depth gauge, real high-tech depth gauge that I set up so that the rod is touching the bottom inside, and then take it out of the chuck. Turn it upside down, and then with the depth gauge, and it's got a little spirit level on the top there, I can get that so that's level, and I can just put a little mark there, just a tiny little white mark, you probably can't see it, with my Chinograph pencil, so I know exactly where my interior depth is. And then it's just a case of putting it between centres. I've got this cup chuck here, or a re-chucking chuck, which is several thicknesses of MDF with some closed cell foam inside it. I'd left the tail centre mark there. Just wriggle it into place, nice and true. And then with my favourite bowl gouge that I, is my go-to tool. Just turn that foot away. Now it might seem overkill me using this 5/8 bowl gouge to do this, but it's my go-to tool, and it's like an extension of me, so I know exactly what it's going to do. If I was to pick up a spindle gouge, which I'm not familiar with, muscle memory wise, because I haven't been using it all day, I will have a catch immediately, and you do not want a catch at this stage. So I'm just taking this stem down fairly small. Now I want to put a recess in the bottom of this. So I've got a little 6mm spindle gouge, and I just create a recess in the bottom here. Just put a nice little curve in there, nice and simple to sand, and I know that I've only taken about 2 or 3 mil depth there, and that's right in the center, so I can come down here, just come across that base, take my time, cut it really cleanly, check that it's nice and level there. Yeah, take a little bit more out of that. So all we've got to do is just cut that off, carve that stub away, sand the base. So one finished vase. Just get a little flush cut saw in there, cut that away, carve the nub away, and then sand the base. And the little white mark you can just see will wipe off because it's a wax crayon. So there you go. That's how I use the woodcut hollowing tools. As I said, my favourite tools. Love them, wouldn't be without them, and they don't owe me much. So yeah, thanks for watching, and enjoy using your hollowing tool. Cheers, bye.